name is Mitch Bone. I'm the president of the MSUB College Democrats and also a member of the Yellowstone County Central Committee. And I am here today with two of our candidates for governor and lieutenant governor, Mike Cooney and Casey Schriner.
How you
How are
doing?
you guys doing today?
Doing
Good,
great.
good. Thanks for having us.
Glad to be
No
here.
problem. So I just want to start this off by asking you both to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, why don't I go ahead and jump in? And first of all, I grew up in Butte. So I'm a Butte rat, and I'm very proud of that. Graduated from high school in Butte High, went off to the University of Montana, got a degree in political science. But while I was at the university, that's when I really kind of got involved in politics and worked on a congressional campaign. And then I was an intern at the legislature. And then I decided I needed to run for the legislature. So while I was a sophomore in college, I decided to run for the legislature back in my home district in Butte. I looked about 15 years old, but I was out knocking on doors and I ended up getting elected, ended up serving 2 terms in the state house. After I graduated from college, I got married, ended up going to work for then U.S. Senator Max Baucus, worked in Montana, Washington, D.C., then came home to Montana, worked for him a little bit longer, ended up running for Secretary of State in 1988, or in the 1988 election. Ended up getting elected Secretary of State, served 12 years as Secretary of State. Got out of government in 2000. I was term limited out and went to work for Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies. It was a great job. I got to help promote the CHIP program, getting Montanans signed up so their kids had access to health care. After that, ended up running for the state Senate and served 2 terms as a state senator. One of the sessions, I served as president of the Senate. Finished that, thought I was done, was working for the Department of Labor and Industry when the governor called me and asked me to be lieutenant governor. Surprised the heck out of me when he did, but I was pleased to join Steve Bullock and be his partner, and I've been there for 5 years. And now here I am, lieutenant governor, running to hopefully end up in the office that my current boss holds and keeping it in Democratic hands. That's the important thing. So that's a quick trip through my life.
Awesome. And what about for you, Casey?
Yeah, so just like Mike, my blue collar roots run pretty deep in Montana. You know, I come from a family that's both grandfathers worked for the Anaconda Copper Company. One in my mom's hometown and Mike's hometown of Butte, where he was a lift operator in the Mountain Con mine. And then here in Great Falls, my dad's dad, where I grew up here in Great Falls, worked at the smelter. So, you know, I grew up in a family where, my dad was a minimum wage worker. He was an orderly who decided later on in life to do better by our family and get his RN degree. At the time, he was one of 2 men in his class at Old Northern Montana College. I decided later in life through seeing what education could do for my family to become a teacher. So after graduating with my degree from Montana State University in cell biology and neuroscience, actually went back and got my master's in education and went to the classroom. Spent some years in the classroom, and then while in the classroom, you know, I was living in Butte, working in Butte, and met my wife, and we, you know, got pregnant when I was here in Great Falls. And after my first year of teaching, we had our first son. I also, during that time, ran for the legislature, where I have served now what will be 8 years, where I've had the opportunity to serve in 2 leadership roles as both the whip and most recently as the Democratic leader in the Montana House. So, you know, having had that classroom experience, I've also had a chance to be a state employee. It's been a pretty interesting opportunity, and I look forward to being able to take those experiences to the governor's office to work with my friend and my future boss, Mike.
Definitely. So what made you both want to run for your respective offices?
Well, you know, I think there's a couple things. First of all, Montana's always been my home. And every office I've ever run for, it's always been due to the fact that I thought that I could help give back something to the state, a state that I've loved, that's treated my family very well, and continues to treat my children and hopefully the future generation that's coming ahead of next to us. We've got to make investments in our community. We've got to make investments in our state. And so that's how I've always approached any office I've run for. I run for governor for the same reason. I think that, first of all, our state is at a crossroads, and we can go one of 2 directions. I think one of the directions we can go is to continue to make Montana better, make sure that we have a wonderful education system, that we're providing good paying jobs for the people of Montana, that, that we have a healthcare structure that will give us access to affordable and good healthcare throughout the state, and that we can continue to love and cherish and use this state and our public lands, because that's who we are as Montanans. We like to hunt, fish, hike, and just enjoy the cleanest air and cleanest water. Government and the governor has everything to do with all of those things. And if we want to continue on that path forward, I think, the Cooney Schriner ticket is where we need to be. If you don't think that's the case, then you're probably looking at something like Greg Gianforte, who believes that education is a monopoly and it needs to be privatized. Healthcare is something not terribly important because he's tried to repeal the ACA and he thinks Medicaid expansion isn't the proper way to go. He thinks our public land should probably be held in private hands and that people should be kept away from our access from rivers and streams. There's a real difference between what we're planning on doing when we're elected and what I know Greg Gianforte is going to do when he's elected. That's why I'm running for governor.
Casey?
Yeah, so I got into the political world for a simple reason. I think that working Montana families should always have a seat at the table and a chance to get ahead. And coming from a blue collar background, having been an educator, having been a public employee, being a special needs dad, I did mention earlier, 2 of my sons actually are on the autism spectrum. I actually am somebody who's lost my job while I was sitting in NICU with looking over my son who had just been born. Great Falls has a tough time, and we just passed one, but we've had a tough time passing mill levies in this community, and I was one of the teachers who lost their jobs from that. So, I think it's important that Montanans have folks representing them in Helena who understand what they go through, the trials, the tribulations, and have seen firsthand those barriers and have had experience overcoming them. Those are the folks who should be helping make the decisions for the state of Montana. Those are the folks who should be bringing their ideas and their neighbors' ideas to the forefront so that we know that everyday Montanans actually have a say. And I'm really proud and happy to be running with my friend Mike, who I know has comes from a blue collar community, a blue collar family just like myself, and we really are the ticket that represents everyday Montanans. So that's really why I've ran for every position I've ever had, is just to make sure that everyday working Montanans have a seat at the table.
Awesome. So what has your guys' role been during our current pandemic of COVID-19, and how do you think we've handled it as a state in Montana?
Well, I have to say, I think we've handled it incredibly well. But first, let me say, everything that we have done from the state level, all the directives that the governor has put forward, they're only as good as the way Montanans, respond to it. So our response has been successful because Montanans have joined us as a family, basically, looking out after each other, wanting to make sure that we were taking care of each other. And so I think all Montanans who have participated and done what they've done really deserve the credit. And the credit is this: we are the lowest state in the nation with COVID positive cases. We have the lowest rate of hospitalization. I will say right now, 16 deaths are 16 too many. But compared to the other states in the nation, and even compared to our neighbors surrounding Montana, we're in very, very good shape. And I think that we jumped on this early. We're monitoring it early. We've been responding as we've needed to respond. And again, Montanans have stood up and really done a great job of joining the effort and making this a success. We're not out of the woods. I can tell you that right now. We've got a long way to go, but we feel very comfortable. We're in very strong position. We're going to continue to monitor things as things begin to slowly and methodically open up. And we'll be prepared if we start to see a reoccurrence in any area. We're prepared now to get in there, jump on it quickly, get testing, do trace testing in areas, making sure we can follow up where people who have been diagnosed as being positive and finding anybody they've been in contact with. That's the way we're going to continue to do it to keep Montana basically at the bottom of the list when it comes to the COVID crisis. And that's where we want to be.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and if I can say, Mitch, just real quickly,
yeah.
My role My role has been a partner with the governor. I have been out there working with him side by side. We bounce all these ideas off each other. We're out there talking to local health officials. We're talking to the health officials in Helena. I spent time on the phone with tribal leaders, different community leaders, county commissioners. We're taking phone calls all the time. We're trying to engage and make sure our communication is really strong, because that is the other way that you keep people engaged, on top of the game, and prepared to really address issues as they arise. So I've been very fortunate to be working side by side, day by day, with Governor Bullock. And I'm going to say this right now, he deserves an incredible amount of credit for where we are today, and because he's been the one leading us.
For sure. And Casey, I know you've had a role too. So what has your role been?
Yeah, so I feel like this is a great example of why this ticket is the most prepared folks to take over and from day one hit the ground running. Because while Mike and the governor have been working from the executive branch side, making sure that Montana's health and safety is at the forefront, I've been working with our legislative delegations to make sure that the communication is there to act as an ambassador for my constituents, as I know many legislators are. You know, these jobs don't go away at the end of the legislative session, and we're lucky enough to have some very good elected officials at our legislative level, but then obviously in the executive, who take these jobs seriously and day in and day out are taking calls from constituents and trying to relay messages to and from agencies to those folks to make sure that our local businesses are getting the best information possible so they can make the decisions they need to make, but then also making sure that our constituents' rights and stuff are being upheld. So I know myself, I've had a number of conversations in official capacities with the lieutenant governor, trying to help solve constituent problems. And that's one of the perks. It's one of the responsibilities, but also one of the perks of where Mike and I sit. We have jobs that we continually are still doing to help the people of Montana.
Definitely. So moving off of that a little bit, I just want to, my next question is, if you guys are elected, what would you either continue that Governor Bullock has had, or what would you change that he maybe hasn't done in his tenure?
Well, again, I just want to say I get asked that question quite often. You know, what's the difference going to be? And I have to say, with every new administration comes new challenges, and it will be the Cooney Schriner administration. It just won't be a rerun. But I will say this: I'm very proud of the administration that Governor Bullock and I have been a part of, and the many things that we've done. I mean, Medicaid expansion, working across party lines to make sure that we can reauthorize that. The infrastructure bill, finally passing an infrastructure bill. Again, in a bipartisan fashion. Those are just examples of what you can do when you're willing to sit down, bring people to the table. And so I will tell you, our administration will continue those efforts, and we will continue to work hard. But we're going to have other things. We're going to have the COVID recovery, which no other administration will have dealt with until the new administration comes in. We know that that's going to present some real challenges. We've got to be prepared to do that. We're going to have to be prepared to look at the budget and state spending very carefully. And we're prepared to do that. We have the experience. I have built budgets both as Lieutenant Governor and as the chairman of the Finance Committee in the Senate. Casey has been incredibly involved in the budget process as the Democratic leader of the legislature in the last session and earlier sessions. So we are prepared to hit the ground running. The other thing is, we know that there's going to be some other challenges. You know, we're talking about climate change in the state and what it's doing. We need to be very aggressive in trying to address the ever-changing transition from the current energy policies that we have in the state to more renewable. And we're prepared to do that. And we're prepared, but we're not prepared to do that at the risk of the many people and families who are continuing to be supported by our existing energy industry. But we know it's going to transition, and we're going to have to be working with those families in that transition. We're going to have to be very aggressive on that. So those are, you know, those are just some examples, and I'm sure Casey can add a few more. But believe you me, it is going to be a new administration when we step into office on that first day, and we're ready to hit the ground running and get charging.
Yeah, and I would just, I mean, that's perfectly said. I will say, I mean, I think people can definitely know that we're going to be at the forefront of pushing education policy. We're going to be folks out there making sure that we finally get education for our youngest learners done in the state of Montana. You know, Montana, my family specifically has benefited from that 7-to-1, I guess you'd say, return on investment. You know, I had a 3-year-old who was nonverbal, made no eye contact, and kind of had to physically be manipulated to communicate with, but because of our public preschool situation, this last legislative session, Aiden was reading books to me over FaceTime every night of the legislative session. Every kid in Montana should have that opportunity. It shouldn't be a lottery of where you're born. You know, and to kind of double down on what Mike said about experience, we're also in a unique situation where we're going to be dealing with the COVID recovery, where businesses and workers are going to be looking for the right match of business and skill sets. Well, Mike and I both have come from professional jobs working for the Department of Labor, putting people through and promoting stuff like apprenticeship, making sure that every opportunity in education to mix business with education, to make sure that businesses have the skills and the tools they need to make sure their workforce is trained. These are all things I think are going to be big coming out of the COVID crisis, that people can't be looking for the bathrooms and meeting legislators for the first time on day one. And Mike and I are the only two that are going to be able to hit the ground running, that have the existing relationships with both Republicans and Democrats to be able to get stuff done. Because we know we're going to probably be in a divided legislature again. We're going to work like heck to make sure that, try and make that not happen. But the odds are in the favor that we're going to be dealing with, we'll have to, no matter what, deal with folks from both party and find ways to bring everyone to the table so their voices are heard.
Great. And so my next question is, what makes your ticket of Cooney Schriner different than the other tickets running for governor and lieutenant governor?
Well, Casey, start off on this one. Go ahead, take it.
So, okay. so I think experiences need to matter. I think accomplishments for the people of Montana should matter. And I think in this race, there's no question where experience and accomplishments lie. And it's with the Cooney Schriner ticket. You know, Mike and I both have been the only two in this race who have played pivotal roles in doing things like pass Medicaid expansion, for passing a firefighter health and safety bill that took 18 years to pass. Well, Mike and I worked really hard to get that done this last session. We have a track record of working across the aisle to be able to get things done. And it's nothing negative against the other folks. They just don't have the experience and the relationships that Mike and I have, that I think truly set us apart. I think life experience is a whole other conversation to have. You know, Mike decided to put somebody on his ticket that's been in the classroom. Mike made the choice to put somebody on his ticket that has dealt with IEPs, dealt with behavioral health folks in his house every day as a special needs dad. We have some pretty, not to mention, which Mike will talk about, just the level of experience he has in helping move Montana forward. Those are just a few things that I think set us apart, not just in the primary, but in the general election. There's not another team that's going to be able to hit the ground running and represent such a vast section of Montana's rights and their voices in the governor's office, and have an open seat for anybody who wants to actually help move Montana forward.
Boy, it's hard to follow up on that, because that's a pretty good laundry list, and he hit on all the points. I just say that, you know, I've known Casey Schriner for a number of years. And even though at one point we were political opponents, we never got nasty with each other. We always appreciated each other. And when Casey decided to get out of the governor's race, I saw it as a great opportunity to reach out and put together a team that really brought experience and leadership to the governor's race. And I think that really does, I mean, both of us have spent the vast majority of our time in Montana. We have deep roots here. We both have children named Aiden. His is his son, mine is my daughter. So, I mean, there's a great connection here. And I just think that we have, you know, we talk about Montana values. We have lived those Montana values. And I think that is something that's going to be very important to people when they decide who they're going to vote for, and especially who is best suited to beat Greg Gianforte in the general election, because there's no question he's going to be the guy. He's got all the money in the world. So we need the strongest team who's going to get out there, work hard, has a record, and a record that is very distinguishable from his record and what he believes, where he believes Montana needs to go. That's why I'm delighted to be a part of this team, and I'm delighted Casey agreed to join this ticket.
Great. And so my final question for you guys is, what is something that we don't know about you that is just kind of not politically Not politically involved or anything like that, just something that we don't know about you.
You know, this is a hard one, but I'm gonna, and maybe some people know this, but I don't know, about 20 years ago, two of my children went to a birthday party, and when they came back, they had a big galvanized tub, and they had a turtle. We still have that turtle. His name is Zelmo, and Zelmo has been with us for the last 20 some years. We're trying to figure out where Zelmo's going to go when we go, because he'll probably be around.
I was going to say, they live forever.
Well, he's not a tortoise. He is a turtle, but I have to tell you, what a pet. We've had a lot of pets in our lives, but Zelmo hibernates in the winter, and he gets up in the summer. He just started eating and getting up and moving around. So he gets a strawberry every morning along with his food, and then he just wanders around the house. So we have a free range turtle in our house.
That's awesome.
Oh, that is a tough one because I talk so much about my personal life. What most people probably don't know is I actually went to college initially on a choir scholarship.
Oh, I'm a choir kid myself.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Didn't get to college on it, but we did it through high school. So.
Well, went to college on a choir scholarship, maybe a little bit of an embellishment. I got a little scholarship to be in college choir. We'll just go there.
We may have to test this out, Casey. You know,
I've said too much.
Sadly, there's not too much money in music.
That's right.
So how can people get involved on your campaign if they aren't and want to after this?
Yeah, it's a great question. And especially with the COVID situation, campaigns have been turned on their heads. We can't get out. We can't do events. We can't do, and thank you very much for pulling this together, because this is the way we have to communicate. But, people talking to people is very, very important, especially during the COVID crisis. We think that, if you're willing and you're supportive of our campaign, please reach out, talk to your friends, neighbors, and your families. Write a letter to the editor talking about why it is you're supporting this particular ticket. It's a hard time to ask for money. Because nobody has a bunch of money hanging around anymore, especially with the way things are economically. But if you have a few extra dollars, we could, all campaigns could use it, but I'm not asking for all campaigns. I'm asking for ours. But I just have to say, I do think personal interaction is going to be very, very important in this campaign, simply because we can't get out there. We don't have the ability to get yard signs out. We can't be knocking on doors. We can't, even phone banks are hard to do under these current circumstances. So please go to cooneyformontana.com. There's a lot of opportunity there to work with us. We would encourage people to do that. And and then ballots are being mailed out. And so when you get your ballot, vote it. Vote it quickly, get it in, and be done with it. And hopefully come June 2nd, we're going to have a celebration. And then on June 3rd, we are going to be starting our campaign to make sure the governor's office stays in Democratic hands.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, and have a great rest of your Friday.
Thanks very much, Mitch.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Mitch.
Take care. Thanks.